Hello, gang. For today's lesson, we are going to take a look at pages A8 and A9 in our science books. So go ahead and get your science book so that you can follow along with me as I read. Remember, you're on pages A8 and A9. Plant and animal cells. Although cells are the basic unit of all living organisms, cells contain even smaller structures called organelles. Each organelle has a particular function in the life processes of a cell. All cells except those of bacteria have similar organelles. For example, every cell is enclosed by a thin covering called the cell membrane. The cell membrane holds the parts of the cell together. It also separates the cell from its surroundings. Most cells have a nucleus. The nucleus, which is enclosed in its own membrane, determines the cell's activities. One of the functions of the nucleus is to control cell reproduction. Cells can grow only to a certain size, so the number of cells has to increase in order for plants and animals to grow. Inside the nucleus are thread-like structures called chromosomes. These contain information about the characteristic of the organism. When a cell reproduces, identical chromosomes go into each new cell. Between the cell membrane and the nucleus is the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance containing many chemicals to keep the cell functioning. There are several kinds of organelles in the cytoplasm. Each is enclosed in a membrane. Mitochondria release energy from food. Vacuoles are storage organelles. They store food, water, or waste materials. Two organelles make plant cells different from animal cells. In addition to a cell membrane, a plant cell is surrounded by a rigid cell wall, which gives it strength. Plant cells also have chloroplasts, which make food. Okay, take a look down at comparing the plant and animal cells. So on page A8, we have our plant cell. Plant cells have different shapes and sizes, but they all have the same parts. The diagram shows what you might observe if you could look inside a leaf cell. The organelles you see are working parts of a complete cell. Each organelle has its own specific function. So take a look here. Now we've completed our vocabulary, and most of these were in there. And let me go ahead and just review a little bit. You will have to eventually fill out a diagram of a plant cell, and down the road you'll have a quiz on that too. So for number one, go ahead and find number one on your picture. That's the nucleus, the organelle that determines all of the plant cell's activities and the production of new cells. Number two is chromosomes, thread-like structures that contain information about the characteristic of the plant. Find number three. That's your cell membrane, a covering that holds the plant cell together and separates it from its surroundings. Four is the cell wall. That's the rigid layer that supports and protects the plant cell. Five is the cytoplasm. That's a jelly-like substance that contains many chemicals to keep the cell functioning. Six is the chloroplasts. This is the organelles that make food for the plant cell. The vacuole is an organelle that stores food, water, and wastes, and that's at number 7. And number 8 are the mitochondria, organelles that release energy from food. Like I said before, that guy is the powerhouse of the cell. And the two organelles that a plant cell has that an animal cell doesn't are the cell wall and the chloroplasts. All right, let's go over to page A9. We're going to take a look at the animal cell. The functions that allow an animal to live and grow are also carried out in its cells. Although the iguana's skin cells are a different shape and size from its blood cells, each cell typically contains the same parts. As you look at the diagram of an animal cell, notice how it differs from the plant cell. So take a look there. You have your nucleus, so find number 1, the organelle that determines all of an animal cell's activities and the production of new cells. You have 2, those are your chromosomes. Look, once again, the chromosomes are inside the nucleus. They're the thread-like structures that contain information about the characteristics of an animal. 3 is your cell membrane. It's the covering that holds the animal cell together and separates it from its surroundings. 4 is cytoplasm, the jelly-like substance that contains many chemicals to keep the cell functioning. 5 are your vacuoles. Those are the organelles that store your food, waste, and your water. I think of the vacuoles, when I think of vacuoles, I think of the word vacuum, because it stores the waste when you vacuum your carpet. So kind of the same concept there. The vacuoles, they're storing the waste. They also store food and water too, but that's kind of how I remember vacuoles and what their function is. And number 6 is the mitochondria, organelles that release energy from food. Okay? So what you're going to do now, what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to be filling out pages A8 and A9 of your study guide. So you're going to need to pull that out from your packet, your science packet. You can use the book. Go ahead and fill in A8 and A9, and actually that's going to finish up the study guide here, this first part of the study guide. All right. If you cannot find your study guide, I have attached it to this assignment. So, and you can see here, today's assignments, read pages A8 and A9. Complete your study guide for pages A8 and A9. Then you're going to make sure that you complete the cell parts exit ticket, which is right here. It says Google Forms, sign in. That's your exit ticket for today. Make sure that you are studying, because you do have a vocabulary quiz coming up. I did attach the flashcards here from Flippity, so you can use those to study, as well as your vocabulary study guide that you already filled out, the notes that you filled out with the definitions. If you have any questions, please let me know.